Welcome back to Tech Path. We are going to get a chance to dive into EV news and also kind of some things that I think are really going to start to affect how our society is going to be dealing with electric vehicles in the future. And one of the big ones, of course, is going to be around the area of delivery. My name is Paul Barron. I'll host you today. And joining me is the CEO of AYRO. Now, AYRO is a company that produces and manufactures small electric vehicles that are designed mostly for logistics and delivery systems. And with me today, I've got Mr. Rod Keller. Great to have you on the show, Rod.
Thank you, Paul. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so you're coming to us out of Texas, the great state of Texas, which I love. I can't complain. One of my favorites because it's my home. So, Rod, tell me a little bit about AYRO and what you guys are doing out there.
Yeah, we're an EV manufacturer. We design and manufacture what we like to refer to as purpose-built electric vehicles that enable commercial fleets for a wide range of different industries, universities, hospitals, corporate campuses, airports, hotels, restaurants, and pharmacies, particularly in the area of moving cargo in some places and actually delivery. And I've got some interesting things to share with you on that, kind of the silver lining of COVID, but primarily around delivery.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So we track electric vehicle growth, a lot of the trends that are happening. Obviously, Tesla news hits our show quite a bit. But these companies like yours with AYRO, we've seen Arcimoto, we've seen some of the players start to really surface, especially in this time, to move in this kind of in this new sector around restaurant delivery. Restaurant delivery is, we've done some numbers on this. This could be a huge market for electric vehicles. Talk to me how your products could flow into the delivery schematic and logistics for all kinds of different applications.
Yeah, there's really two different opportunities. We sell a lot of our light-duty electric trucks through, you may have heard of the large golf car manufacturer called Club Car. And they have a very, very large dealer of theirs in Colorado who is really the preeminent supplier of what I like to call mobile hospitality vehicles. And even prior to COVID, they were selling a lot of these vehicles that were supplied with hot and cold food, prepackaged food, and they were selling it into sports stadiums, universities, large business campuses where people would buy for lunch. And then COVID came. And it actually, as I said, the only real silver lining is it accelerated the need for universities to deal with how do we get food and beverage to our students without forcing them into the dining halls. So we've seen a rapid increase in the purchase of our vehicles in conjunction with this partner we have in Colorado named Gallery. And now the companies like Chartwell, Sodexo, Aramark, all the big food and beverage suppliers are purchasing our vehicles and strategically placing them around campus. So as students come out of class, they can grab something quickly and then go to the next class. So it's worked very, very well for us. And as I said, one of the silver linings of COVID.
That's interesting because, with a scenario like that, especially at a university, because they're kind of getting away from the dining halls that used to kind of be around these campuses, obviously with the requirements to keep social distancing around. These are like mini food trucks? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, but there's a clear difference. The biggest difference is a lot of people think of food trucks where you see somebody standing in there cooking food, selling it. These are not. These come inventoried already with what you'll see in a lot of cases are bagels, sandwiches, coffee. And in fact, when we talked to Einstein Bagels, they shared with us they conduct as many as 60 transactions in 15 minutes. That's one every 15 seconds. Come in, grab a cup of coffee, run their student ID, pay for it, and go to the next one. And these vehicles are paying for themselves in about 4 or 5 months. So we're very excited about the trend we see there.
I love that. Of course, that's going to be used in an area where, that could also be used on corporate campuses if you look at larger groups. But when you look at the delivery logistics that what the bigger audiences are facing, and when I say bigger audiences, consumer audiences, and where restaurants, retail delivery, all those types of applications, how would AYRO fit into that today if I were to say, hey, I have a chain of 50 units and I'm going to go to self-delivery? How would I work with you guys?
Yeah, well, we built a three-wheeled electric vehicle. We actually built our first generation three-wheeled electric vehicle a couple of years ago, and we tested it in a number of different applications. And what we found, particularly when we talked to restaurants, were They were not happy about the fact they were giving as much up as 30% of the ticket to the aggregators like Grubhub, DoorDash, and
Right.
Uber Eats. But they were willing to live with it because delivery was only making up 5, 6, 8, no, really
Exactly.
not much more than 10% of their delivery. Well, COVID came, and guess what happened? We all know what happened. Delivery
Yeah.
accelerated very, very quickly. And now these restaurants are very upset because their margin is being impacted much more so as delivery accelerates. And they're trying to find ways, how do I get control of my financial performance because the aggregators are hurting me on the bottom line. In addition to that, they lose control of the experience, they lose control of the data. And in some cases, some of the data we've seen is as much as 20% of the deliveries, that food's even being tested by the driver. So some of the things that we're doing now on our next generation vehicle, different than what you've seen from some of the other EV companies that have said that they want to get into the delivery spaces. We don't build vehicles that deliver food. We build food delivery vehicles. And we work with
Right.
some of the largest quick service chains and put them on our advisory council to help us understand what is it that we really need to address. And we're able to reduce their operating expense by almost as much as 50% and allow them to regain control of that customer experience.
Now, your product to a retailer or to a restaurant is going to come in as a finished device. I've got to kind of run my own logistics system, my own delivery application. It's basically like a regular car that I would normally have out there. It just happens to be an EV. So my cost of operation is much lower, right?
Yeah, it's true, but I'll tell you what, Paul. I sit in some of these meetings and I listen to other companies, and they all want to talk about the vehicle. And I can't go have a conversation with a C-level executive, take, for example, Subway, and talk about my vehicle unless I say, here's how you're going to store it. Here's how you're
Yeah.
going to charge it. Here's how you're going to finance it. Here's how you're going to maintain it. Here's how you're going to repair it. Here's how you're going to insure it. And then here's how we're going to dispose of it at end of life. So we built some fairly significant strategic partnerships that help us build out that ecosystem because the vehicle is just a piece of it. Because many of these restaurants, they may have as many as 10 to 20,000 vehicles in some of these franchisors that have 8, 10,
Sure.
12,000 locations.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got, I look at these restaurant chains all the time in terms of delivery, and this is a real problem that has really risen to the top. Okay, so I want to put AYRO vehicles in my chain. I got 50 units. I'm just kind of running some math here. I've got to park these. So this unit, typically, do you recommend that this is going to be something that's parked at my restaurant out front, and I've got to set my own charging station? What would be kind of the scenarios I have to run through here?
I mean, it's highly likely that you're going to park it at your location. But when we work with them, we've got a fleet management partner. We're working with companies like ChargePoint. They're not going to have to go figure out how to finish that ecosystem out themselves.
Okay.
We're going to bring it to them. It's likely going to be a lease to them. We manage it through end of life and then bring them. They're typically going to last 3 or 4 year leases anyway. So,
Right.
and as I said, we've got a number of these large quick service restaurant chains that are working with us to describe what they need. And I expect you'll see us in the market with a next generation vehicle probably toward the end of this year.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's going to be interesting.
Yep.
All right, so you've got these different variations of the vehicles themselves. Talk to me about, especially in food delivery, there are certain things that have to be done. Obviously, there's areas that are going down toward the hermetically sealed. There's areas where they want to have food warming or food cooling aspects. Do you have any of that kind of technology built into your product?
Yeah, and I think it's important to say we do. We'll have freezers, we'll have warming ovens in there as well, places to store to drinks in there. And as I said, we didn't build a general purpose vehicle like some other companies and then later find out, well, I didn't have the demand for it. Let's see if we can go deliver food in it. We start the opposite. We understand what it is and we're building a food delivery vehicle now. So we're, one of the things, for example, all antimicrobial surfaces. There's ways to store drinks so they don't spill as you're driving it. And by the way, these are 100% street legal vehicles. They'll run up to 70 miles an hour for 80 miles of range. They're no different than driving the vehicle you drive to work every day.
Yeah, I like that. And I got a chance to see some of the vehicles on your website, took a look at some of them on the video. Pretty amazing units. When you look at kind of this evolution towards autonomy, especially obviously that's being discussed around the electric vehicle from more of a passenger car side of things, do you see the delivery vehicle ever going to that level of autonomy to be able to operate separately without a driver at any point in our future?
I do, but not exclusively. And let me give you an example. Autonomous vehicles are beginning, you're beginning to see them, but we like to refer to them as they're used like a train without a track. Take a
Right.
large college campus. Every day they deliver towels to the dorm. They load them in one location, and they're programmed to drive at a certain time at a certain speed, and then drop them
Yep.
off.
Yep.
I think we'll get there with food delivery. I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow, but I don't ever expect it to be exclusive either. Uh,
Yeah.
so
Interesting. Okay.
yeah.
Is that something that is a 2021 number, a 22 number, in terms of years where we would actually see this actually implemented?
Honestly, some of it's going to be a function of what government decides,
Yeah.
because I mean, as we know, there's vehicles out there. Tesla's got that autonomous capability. To some degree, it does. And I
Sure.
think until consumers trust it, and there's considerable liability you would expect. So I think it'll
Yeah.
get there. I don't know if it'll get there that quick, but there's so many operational efficiency advantages with these three-wheeled electric vehicles anyway today. I think you're gonna see a large number of restaurants move to this instead of being so dependent on aggregators.
Yeah. Have you guys taken a look at any kind of platform integration with the vehicles themselves to maybe implement? So if you look at someone like an Uber Eats or Postmates, et cetera, they provide this marketplace that is being replaced now by a direct takeout or a direct to retail order that is typically on the growth track right now. We are seeing movement where operators, whether it's restaurant or retailers, are getting a lot more direct orders now versus going through these third-party marketplaces. Are you guys having any kind of plans to integrate into some of these marketplace platforms or software that would enable a delivery order?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've already seen interest and growing demand, not just from there, but take Walgreens and CVS, for example, on that side. They'd love to be
Mhm.
able to deliver
Yep.
prescriptions in neighborhoods. Uh, by the way, we're not picking winners and losers. We're also talking to the aggregators about the solution that we've got to help them. So we think we can drive cost out of the whole experience for the aggregators as well as the restaurants too.
Yeah. So this could be something that at some point where maybe Uber decides to actually employ their drivers and deploy something like a fleet, which could go into something like this, which is obviously a lot less expensive than a typical passenger car to run the delivery, which is kind of overkill, these days.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the equipment itself. Is this driven like a car? Or is it kind of like the Arcimoto where it has more of a motorcycle feel in your three-wheel product? Talk to me a little bit about the dynamics there.
Yeah, if you have a driver's license, you can drive this. In fact, one of our mission statements is we build purpose-built vehicles using technology that are usable by anyone. So no, you do not need a motorcycle license to drive this. Imagine that if you had a vehicle that was used for delivery and you're trying to sell it in the masses, and you have to have
Sure.
a motorcycle license to drive it. That would be another qualifier you'd have to get for drivers. So we did not go down that path. Our first generation vehicle was not lithium. It was a lead acid battery. Our next generation will be. So you'll see more range, you'll see more speed, and you'll see air conditioning. You'll see all the climate controls you would expect. It'll have electric windows, all the things you would typically see in a vehicle. One of the reasons, and quite safe as well. So we're excited about it. I think, once again, I think the market moved towards us. We were doing this anyway. And when the restaurants realized, wow, I am losing control of the experience here, I want to regain that. In fact, Panera Bread ran a whole ad campaign saying we will not use third parties. So
Yeah.
we think we're in the right
It-
place at the right time.
No, it's definitely a transition that is happening in the restaurant space. We track it heavily, and it's interesting to see. I mean, obviously the marketplaces have kind of shown the industry itself that there's a great opportunity here, and especially COVID has kind of implemented a new format in which these restaurant operators are technically having to operate in now. Now, you mentioned that you guys are in transition right now in terms of your battery tech. Talk to me about that, because that is something that the industry, if you know restaurants, sustainability is a big factor. They want to make sure they're putting out the right kind of message to their customers because they need to look and feel as though they're doing good for the environment. How does your product play into that?
Yeah, I mean, we're not only delivering food, we're delivering it in a green, sustainable, vehicle as well. Will be 100% lithium, as I said. There is an option to have more range in the event that you've got a restaurant that has more suburban deliveries than just urban deliveries. The
Right.
technology is changing very quickly in lithium. There's a new technology called solid state lithium. Gives you almost a 50% increase in range. And range in our vehicle today is 80 miles, which should cover the majority of restaurants. The charging is getting faster and faster. So
Right.
I am very optimistic. In fact, I don't know if you saw, even GM announced last week that by
Right.
2035 they will only sell electric vehicles.
Yeah, and of course, GM, of course, is talking about some delivery units. It'll be interesting to see how they go down that track. Obviously, you've got Tesla and the robo-taxi and what they may be doing over there. Tesla being in your backyard with their new Gigafactory designed for their Cybertruck, that could be a big advantage for you guys because there's a lot of side hustles that are in this industry that could really play into that. Will this help your business there in Austin?
I think it will, and I'll tell you exactly why. Uh, Tesla's one of the few companies in our space large enough to be able to ask their component suppliers for what's called just-in-time inventory. And
Okay.
as Tesla sees their demand that day, they pull inventory from those just-in-time warehouses. Many of the components that they use are the same components we use, so we think
Right.
it gives us a little bit better opportunity to try to just get a just-in-time relationship from some of these too, which improves our financial performance and
Right.
allows us to meet demand much quicker than if we were the sole EV supplier here in Austin.
Well, I could see also the job market, because you've got maybe some crossover engineering, definitely assembly kind of flows in the same direction. I like that. It could be interesting because obviously your company there, Tesla moving in, we've seen and heard of a few other companies in the EV space talking about Austin as a new home. This could become a new EV mecca center for electric vehicle manufacturing there in the state of Texas. Is there any potential from the state of Texas to kind of help these manufacturers really accelerate things so they can kind of become Detroit, so to speak, of where the industry was,
Yeah,
25 years
I
ago?
was glad to see Tesla come to Austin for more than one reason. You may know this. The majority of the states here in the U.S. do not allow manufacturers to sell direct. They
Right,
force you to sell through a dealer.
through a dealer.
California is
Yep.
one, and that's why Tesla was there because they sold direct. Texas does not yet. However, with Tesla's strength, that may change here. And I'm all about let the customer define convenience. Do you want to buy direct? Do you
Yep.
want to buy through a channel? Let them decide. And I think if we change that law here in Texas, it'll be good for everybody.
Yeah. Now, do you guys sell through dealers or are you selling direct to business to business?
No, we sell direct through dealers. Club Cars owned by Ingersoll Rand, 535 dealers in the U.S. A little less than half of those are commercial dealers, and they sell all of our light duty electric trucks through the Club Car channel to to hospitals, like I said, universities, business campuses, so forth.
Right. What has been, Rod, the kind of the feedback you're getting from the business community? If you look at, kind of the 800-pound gorilla being Tesla and others that are moving into the market in terms of passenger cars, so it kind of sets the tone for the consumer that's kind of recognizing, hey, maybe electric is a good option for me. That's setting up, I would think, also businesses to start taking a look at that. Are you seeing that translate to the business, scenario where they're saying, hey, maybe we should start looking at electric as our primary source here?
Well, it depends on the application, and that's why we chose the commercial application, where we're a bit disruptive. Where we typically do the best is where we're replacing a small gas or a diesel powered pickup truck or a van, where you don't
Right.
need to go 70 miles an hour and you don't need
Yep.
400 miles of range to deliver cargo around a 1,600
Yep.
acre campus like Circuit of the Americas. That's where we do very
Yep.
well, and we're already seeing some success there. I think when Biden administration announced that they were going to spend $1 trillion to go build out 500,000 charging stations, that's going to give people more and more confidence that when they buy an EV, it's going to address some of that range anxiety. Where am I going to get a charge rather than pulling into
Sure.
a gas station?
Yeah, for sure. How long does it take to charge one of your three-wheel units?
Yeah, it will take 3 to 4 hours, but for every 10 minutes of charge, you can get an additional 10 miles of range. Um,
Okay.
so there will be some fast chargers. They're not out because they're fairly cost significant right now. But I think as you see some of this technology, For example, Porsche announced a new electric vehicle that you can go from a 5% level charge to 80% in 22 minutes.
Yeah.
Still not as fast as gas, but improving very quickly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I drive a Tesla, so I know. Of course, for me, I'm using like a almost like the 220 type outlet that
Yeah.
gives me a full charge of up to 80% in basically 4 to 5 hours,
Yeah.
and obviously with a supercharged network. So I think that there is a scenario now where consumers are starting to accept electric. The cost justification is where it usually gets a pushback. In your industry, if you look at an ICE vehicle versus what you guys are doing, do you win out on the cost variable to be able to win that business? How do you guys stand up there?
In those very specific commercial applications, as I was mentioning earlier, we're about a 49% reduction in operating expense. So when you compare our light duty electric truck to a Ford F-150, it's a reduction in annual operating expense. Apple to apple is about 49%. And obviously the benefit of no CO2 emissions. And on a college campus, you're not limited to just driving on the street. Sometimes they want to be able to drive it across a curb on campus, and because it's not as heavy, obviously, as a full-size truck. So, we do very, very well. We're kind of disruptive, we like to refer to ourselves, because where we do well is in applications where you don't need all the features of a traditional automobile. And that's our sweet spot.
That's a pretty significant savings for fleet operators, especially when you look at somebody that's got, hey, I've got 50 units. I'm going to need, 100 of these types of units out there, and in the effort to maintain them and all that kind of thing. Yeah. Are you seeing? Okay, so what is the most? Last question here. What's the most creative application you've seen your customers come to you for so far? Anything out there that's kind of crazy or would really kind of make you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's not in stone yet by any means. We've been approached, and we're just having early conversations with what's going on with COVID. Well, there's a need for a mobile vaccination vehicle because you can put it inside of it. You can put it indoors, and there's no CO2 emissions. And Biden's trying to get 100 million vaccinations in 100 days, and it's not the production; it's how do you get them delivered? That's the challenge. How do you get them in the arms of the people that need them?
Interesting. That would be a very cool application. I could see that running inside stadiums. You run it inside, large facilities in terms of campus type things. Yeah, definitely. Very cool. Well, hey, Rod Keller, great to have you on from AYRO. I love what you guys are doing down there. Can't wait to see more in the EV production in this industry. It's going to be fun to watch for sure.
Thank you, Paul.
Absolutely. All right, so you guys are joining us over on the podcast, whether it's on Spotify or iTunes, make sure and give us a rating. That's how we get great feedback from you. If you are catching us on YouTube, make sure and subscribe. Make sure also to subscribe with the bell so you get notifications of more great content like this coming at you right here from TechPath. We're going to catch you on the next time. If you have an idea to get on, maybe you have a technology or you have something that's innovative that you feel that should be on TechPath, make sure and hit me up on Twitter @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.